My name is Tammy Tracy, and I am the chair of SLV, San Lorenzo Valley Emergency Network, and organized this meeting to try to talk about what it's really been like to go through these storms and what has been working. What did we do that really we can take some inspiration from moving forward. I've been with SLV for it's probably been since we started about maybe a little more than 12 years ago. Liz would probably know the count of years. But I'm also a CERT, and I have also a ham radio license. Not so active in areas, but others here on the call certainly are. I live in Felton, and thanks for being here. I'll just maybe go and introduce the members of the SLV board who are here. I'll start with Liz.
I'm Liz Taylor Selling. I'm a board member of the San Lorenzo Valley Emergency Network, and we formed in April of 2008. I am also the local Felton area CERT team leader. And lastly, I'm here also to represent the residents of Felton Grove. The picture that you all saw on Facebook where the tree came down on the big red house, that was us. Anyway, welcome everybody.
Dan, I'm a member of this board, SLV, and also a longtime CERT member and longtime ARES member.
I'm Allison. I live in Felton on El Solio Heights Drive, just near the high school. I've been a member of SLV since the beginning, and I'm a member of CERT and ARES. And I'm pretty active in the emergency response community. And that's about it.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jo Marie. I live in Ben Lomond, and I'm on the board as the treasurer. I'm also, like the rest of the board, participating in CERT and ARES. And yes, I was involved in these storms intimately a couple times. So welcome, everyone.
Well, on behalf of Mikhail Barron, it lives in Felton and has been a member of the SLV board for many years.
Hi, I'm Diana Sue. I'm a CERT member for about 7 years and on the SLV board. And it's so great to see so many people out tonight and interested in participating in this.
My name is Stacy Dorsey. I used to live in Boulder Creek. I now live in Scotts Valley and have for quite a while. I've been with Equine Evac for the county since 2008, I believe. I'm an inactive CERT member for Scotts Valley. I'm a ham operator, and I am also one of the co-founders of the SLV Roads Facebook page.
Welcome. Bracken, please.
I live in Lompico, and I'm a member of Felton CERT, and I'm also a member of the environmental group, the Valley Women's Club.
Dawn, please.
Yeah, Dawn Mackey. I live on top of the mountain in Bonny Doon. Member of Bonny Doon CERT, and sometimes I show up at Felton. I'm an ARES member, and we have, which you'll hear about tonight, Bonny Doon Neighborhood Communications.
My name is Dave Reid. I'm the director of the Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience at the County of Santa Cruz. And look forward to the conversation this evening and listening and seeing how I can support.
Hi, I'm Gwen Logston. I live kind of in between Scotts Valley and Felton. Participate in the Felton area CERT, and I guess I can represent my little road since we've got a Facebook communication page.
I'm Roxy Lowe. I live in Bonny Doon. I am a ham operator and fairly busy with Aries. I am a leader in one of or two of my local MURS neighborhood groups that Don Mackey has set up in Bonny Doon, and I'm also a moderator in the Bonny Doon Facebook page for our community.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Shallup. I am a ham radio operator, as you can see from my not last name there. And I'm also active in the other neighborhood community radio groups with Dawn and Roxy.
Good evening. So yeah, Beryl, I live in Ben Lomond, and I don't have any other groups right now, so I just hang out with you guys. Thanks.
Barbara Hanson.
Hi, I'm with the Valley Women's Club on the board. I run the SLV Caregiver Support Group for family members who are watching dementia people at home. Live up Bigfoot Hill and am on the environmental group with Bracken, with Nancy Macy. We've been fighting national disasters since I moved here in '82.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Uccellini, and I'm the director of Kungi, and we run Santa Cruz Relief, a mutual aid organization that was born through the CZU Fires. We do first wave of disaster relief and continued kind of long-term recovery. I live on Harmon Gulch Road, which kind of made some news this last storm in Boulder Creek, and happy to be here with all of you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Eric Sleeper. I'm a reporter with the Santa Cruz Sentinel, and I do your stories tonight.
And I see Emmett Fitzgerald.
Hi guys, my name's Emmett. I'm actually also a journalist up in Oakland, and just here to listen. I report on like extreme weather in California, among other things, but just hoping to hear some stories. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I think we've gone around the room and gotten a hi from everyone. So thanks for that. Yeah, so just to recap, what was inspiration for this meeting was all the experiences that we've had and that we could see happening around us in our neighborhoods, on social media. It's been a heck of a winter. And really wanted to try to bring together the community to talk about we called storm stories, but not just tales of woe, right? Tales of what did it take? What did we find out? What did we do? And what do we want to retain moving forward? What are the good lessons to learn? And what are the hard lessons to learn? Where are there areas for improvement? So I love that we've got a broad spectrum of folks here tonight that can shed a lot of light as to what's happened to us and in our neighborhoods and in our towns. So I'm really grateful that you all are here. I want to take just a moment and tell you a little bit more about SLVN, San Lorenzo Valley Emergency Network. So our mission is to educate, organize, and coordinate our community to help prepare for and respond to emergencies, particularly natural disasters and other threats to life and property. And one of our primary goals is to be educational and help bring awareness to folks so that we can all do well, thrive, and move forward with our lives here in this place that we love. And what's interesting, I think, for us this year is we're changing things up a little bit. We're aiming to have a general meeting about once a quarter and try to present really meaningful topics and have good conversations to join networks and to be a network and to welcome everyone in. In particular, I will say a couple of things about the organization. We are a member organization, and our members are what elect our board, and the board is what drives our nonprofit forward. I will sort of officially open nominations for our board starting this evening. Our election meeting will be in June, and anyone is welcome to become a member of SLVN on our website, slven.org. You can might make a donation to our organization, or you can become a member. Our membership dues for the year are $24. So there's a link right on our homepage. It goes through PayPal. There are no extra fees. So I hope you'll consider. So with that, let's get back to the topic at hand. So we've got a lot of great folks with a wide variety of experiences. Maybe Liz, would you share a story about Felton Grove and what happened with Felton Grove, and what was or some things that were outcomes of that you'd like to share?
For those of you who may not know, Felton Grove is in the crook of the arm of the San Lorenzo Valley, or the San Lorenzo River. We are the area along one of the three areas along the San Lorenzo that floods with some regularity, not as much as the public memory, but it does happen. This year has been incredibly unusual. We had 3 floods in 2 weeks, and that has never happened before. And I'm one of the oldest residents. I don't mean I've lived here longer than most people. So that was quite traumatic. Many of us down here, our houses have been elevated. That was done 20 years ago. So the impact on our ability to live in our houses is not immediate. In other words, we don't have to go live somewhere else generally. There's anyway, generally, but it is still distressing to come home and find, 6 inches of mud in your yard and all over your yard. So while the houses have been elevated above the flood zone, we still are impacted by what happens to our yards and our streets. So probably our major challenges this year, although this could vary by individual, has been to deal with the roads. And we have an organization down here called the Felton Grove Road Association, which was put together back in '96 to address the issues of our road. And we are a county service area, which means we have a small amount of money that's collected yearly on the taxes that the county sets aside for us to use in the to maintain our roads. And this was a classic example of why that was such a good idea that we put that in place. Now, I'm not currently on the road association, but both of the people who could have done this presentation are currently out of country. So anyway, so the road association was able to work with the county to get the roads cleared between the second and third flood, but then we had the third flood, but the third flood was not substantial enough to completely wreck the roads again. It's always clearing the roads is one of the things that has to happen to start to bring order to our area. And from a psychological standpoint, it has incredible settling effect for folks when they realize they can get into their they can get to the outside from their house and through the roads, and that's really important. So I'm gonna, that was one of the so we had the 3 floods, and then after the 3rd flood, Dan and I had a tree fall on our house, and it would have been disastrous in that it would have literally come through our bedroom if it hadn't been for a bay tree that we put in back in 1986 that has now grown big enough that it caught the falling tree and kept it from smashing our house and our cars. So that's our little miracle story for the evening. You never know what's important when you do it. Anyway, but and that there have continued to be issues here with mud. That's always our big issue. Took us several weeks to get things arranged so we could get all the mud out of here, and not just the mud from the roads, but the mud that was on people's property. And you don't think of it, but when 4 to 6 inches of mud precipitates out of water and lands on your property, it has an impact on your gardening, everything. It has an impact on everything because suddenly you have to deal with it, and it will smother plants and impact, your pets will drag it in. Just all sorts of things happen. So I feel like we're settled now, and generally at peace with things at this point. So individuals throughout the neighborhood may have other issues, but that speaks for the area generally.
Ask a question.
Mhm.
Was there an organization of volunteers in your area to respond to some of the cleanup needs?
Yes, I personally, actually, we had some people who came here to help clean up the tree debris from cleaning up the tree that fell on the property. There were others that came down to help shovel out. Dan and I live on sort of a higher side of the bathtub, because this area is like a bathtub. And in other areas of the neighborhood, there were people that got far more mud and destruction down at their properties because they are lower in the neighborhood. So yes, there were people who came in from the volunteer center. I think we may also, which was coordinated through the head of the road association. I want to,
Liz.
Yeah.
And there's the people from AmeriCorps too.
AmeriCorps. Okay, I thought that AmeriCorps was part of that.
I want to mention that the psychological benefit of them coming for me was tremendous. To have, gosh, 6 to 8 people, as I say, many hands make light work. Well, this seemed like an exponential benefit, because when the tree came down, PG&E came and cut it up, but they left it behind. And so we had 5-foot tall piles of, branches and leaves. And between Felton Fire making dump runs, and then finally AmeriCorps helping fill up the truck, pickup truck rest of the way. So I just want to really grateful to the volunteer center and to Felton Fire for helping deal with this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that we have 2 or 3 firefighters, volunteer firefighters for Felton Fire, who live in this neighborhood. So we had support from them as neighbors. They just had access to equipment that they could use and do as volunteers. So we really want to thank them.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'd love to actually, let me ask us, Gwen, yes?
So Liz, being a CERT person, do you try to help prepare your neighborhood for, you know, for whatever might happen? Is that something that worked for you?
Well, we have several people throughout the neighborhood who are not active CERTs, but who have taken the program, which is part of the reason for doing the program, is just to educate the public. People who live down here learn, who move down here learn from other people who live down here about how to handle flooding. And obviously, CERT would have some information on that, although I have to tell you that I don't see an immediate role for CERT in the flooding, just because of the way that flooding happens in our area. Maybe an aftermath, but not in an immediate response, because people should either be safe, assure their own safety, or they should be gone. And the evacuation is a responsibility of the sheriff's department, and I guess that there's possibility that they could use CERTs to help get everybody in motion. But once the flooding is in progress, I don't see a role for CERT that wouldn't be potentially dangerous. And that is the opinion of the fire department as well. I can't speak directly for them, but working with Chief Gray, I understand that's what it is. So when the water's about, it's time for the professionals to come in, but there might be some roles for CERT before and after. Does that answer your question, Gwen?
It answers my question, and I really meant not from a CERT perspective, but because of your experience with CERT, were you able to, you know, tell people that you need to prepare, get your sandbag, you know?
Yes. And anybody who's lived here for very long, that's something we share with new folks. There's quite an internal education program that happens among the residents down here that have been here for a long time. And it is a pragmatic, truthful sharing of the facts. There's nothing Pollyanna-ish about it. So if people, you know, we still help each other, but we try to make sure that everybody's educated.
All right. Barbara, are you raising your hand?
Mm-hmm.
Unmute. Okay. So Liz, I'm wondering, after seeing what happened with Safeway, I mean, there was a major road, Graham Hill and Camp Harmon, and the entire park. This is getting kind of serious. And I'm wondering if this county would ever consider putting up an abutment or a dike or a bunch of sandbags, something to raise the level of the river outside of Paradise, outside of your park.
I'm going to respond to this based on what I know based on experience. The same thing happened in 1998.
I was here.
Okay, so was I.
Yeah.
And so there have been a number of historical, within recent memory, the last 30 years, of closures of that intersection as a result of flooding. I'm not here to be an apologist or to defend or attack anybody. All I can say is there are a variety of interests that come into that suggestion, and they have never, there's never been a meeting of the minds on how to solve that problem. The interests are varied from Fish and Game to the county of Santa Cruz, which has tried to be very helpful with this. I mean, there's a variety of interests and they haven't been able to come together. And frankly, if they just sandbag certain areas of it, then the river will just go around it.
Yeah, it has to be comprehensive.
Yeah, and comprehensive would probably mean at least, now again, I'm a layperson, but we're talking at least from the bridge in Felton all the way down to beyond the Zayante, in where the Zayante comes in. Because that's part of it. It's just the way, it's nature's way. And we put stuff in here and didn't take into account, you know, I bought my house here. Was I advised? Absolutely, I was advised. That was in 1986. But that it was in 1986 that some new restrictions came in. So my point is, some of it is going to have to be about nature working us, making nature work with us. It's also going to be about us understanding we live in an urban wildlife interface and we are living right in the floodway. And so I think we're always open for suggestions, but it's a detailed and exacting job to bring people together for this. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it's a shame that they can't get it together because it just seems like an important place that needs fixing. But
yes, well, and this is not a major urban area where we can utilize scads of funds. So anyway.
Thanks.
Tammy, yeah,
yeah, no worries.
I'm
What
done.
I'd like to do is I'd like to try to weave a story through everyone's presence here. And so what I'd like to do is see if there's anyone else who'd like to share a story related to their personal property situation, and in specifically then I'd like to subsequently call on Dawn and Roxy, and then probably then Stacy, and then we'll see where we're, and then we'll take some more shares. Gwen, are you raising your hand?
I was just raising my hand saying that I'd tell you some stories.
Okay, do you have a story for us and from your
sure.
experience?
So I live on Lockhart Gulch, and during the CZU fires, I created a emergency communication page on Facebook that, I don't know, there were probably 25 people on it back then, and now there's 250 people on it. But it was one of the success stories, I think. I mean, I through the years working with CERT, I've gathered things like, you know, things that you need to prepare before an evacuation. So I shoot that stuff out there every time there's something going on, whether it's weather or fire or whatever. And that tool has been really, really good. From a personal perspective, I was very fortunate. We lost power for one day in all of the winter storms, but my neighborhood is, you know, across the street, they had 3 feet of water coming through their house. So it's pretty rural. I don't know how many people know Lockhart Gulch, but it actually has some side roads that go clear up Wolverine and out onto 17. And, you know, so there's people that are way up in the boonies. And it was very, I think that's probably the biggest success story, is that we were able to say, okay, there's trees down. Even still, there's county people working, because we lost, you know, half of a road. It's been one lane for months. But so being able to communicate like that, and it's just, it's pretty incredible how the whole group just kind of jumps in and, you know, hey, I've got a chainsaw, I'll go up there and see, you know, if I can get things going, or hey, there's power lines, has anybody called PG&E, you know, whatever. So that's been kind of a positive thing. But we had lots of trees come down. I'm sure a lot of people had lots of trees come down. We just had one come down in this last windstorm that was pretty precarious. It was a huge, big oak tree that was being held up by Xfinity and phone lines. And so it was over the top of the road and pretty dangerous, but they finally gotten that at least cut up. It's not cleaned up yet. I don't know whether they're coming back to clean it up. I've been looking into the county's chipping program to see if we fit the criteria. It's not really within 100 feet of somebody's house. Well, it probably is from my house, but it's not on my property, so I don't think that counts. But so I've been looking at the criteria that they've set up for the chipping operation. That I don't think we'll have any problem once we get things chipped to have people come and get nice oak wood for winter. But there's several of them around that want that. But
May I ask
so
real quick, what was the name of the page that you created?
Lockhart Gulch communication page, something close to that.
Nice, well done. I'm gonna quickly move on, and we're able to get Rebecca Uccellini to speak with us. She's got limited time this evening, so Rebecca, if you're able, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi there. See if our video will hold up. I don't have the best reception here, but yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, give a quick background. My background is in disaster relief, mostly international. I moved to Boulder Creek to retire from that work, left a job in Ethiopia, and got here thinking I was going to have a baby and a simpler way of life, and then the disasters sort of kept following me. So 2020, during the wildfires, we started a mutual aid program and partnered with a number of different organizations here, and was able to meet the needs of 700 fire survivors with needs and offers throughout the community. And then kind of since then, we've been doing long-term recovery. We've had people that have fallen through the cracks that we've housed here at our center that lost their homes in the fire. And then as the storms happened this year, we all had, were impacted as our road washed out. It's a private road. 32 residences were impacted and stuck behind a large washout for, I think it was 32 days. It could be longer, I'm kind of forgetting now. But we, I'd say a big takeaway from that, and something that just was a beautiful thing, was, you know, none of our neighbors really knew each other before that happened. And we now have a passable bridge there that we've named the Silver Lining Crossing, because the silver lining in it all is we've all come together And we talk almost every day now, and everybody kind of got out there and we learned so much in the doing. And I think that's what really is the biggest takeaway I see, and why I'm such a believer in mutual aid is as we move more into kind of climate change catastrophes, it's too much burden for any organization, county, state, federal government to just put all of our dependency on them. And really the fastest impact is mutual aid and those neighbors helping neighbors. So on the 21st, when the big windstorm happened, we were able to get 22 people housed, evacuated out of unsafe houses and into housing within 2 hours, and that were stuck on the roads or stuck in unsafe places, and that's with no funding, no nothing. And we're just, it's amazing what neighbors are able to do when they really come together. So I'd say, right now, some of what we're doing is advocacy for the community, those that are having a challenge getting through the different systems. We've kind of walked them through it. We have ongoing emergency housing programs. We help get people into long-term housing that lost their homes. We have an apothecary and community wellness that we provide. We provide terminal cancer patients with end-of-life care. And then we've also been providing things like firewood and propane and emergency generators for those who are medically fragile in the community. And yeah, I think it's just kind of, I'm really grateful for communities like this. And I just learned about what you guys are all doing with Selden. Is that how I pronounce it?
Slivin, yeah.
Slivin, yeah. So I'm just grateful that there's people like you that are passionate about helping and showing up to support and give of your time and your energy and your expertise and brilliance. And I think that's really how, really what it's all about, and how we get through disasters most effectively is people helping other people as much as possible. So
You've mentioned a lot of things. Are all the activities, are they happening under the umbrella of Santa Cruz Relief?
I know the umbrella organization is Kungi. It's a nonprofit, yeah. And Santa Cruz Relief was sort of our mutual aid. It was a fully volunteer-led initiative, and we had a team of 5 or so, very small but mighty. And yeah, I was really proud of what everyone was able to get done. It was just fully volunteer-led. People put in time for 6 months. We were working 16-hour days during the fires, after the fires, and yeah. And Kungi, it's a small organization too. We have 5 employees, and we have some people that work on more emergency. We're the only first wave of disaster relief in this area in the SLV. So we kind of follow behind the EMTs and the fire department and evacuate humans, animals, and kind of go through the process. Hopefully getting people home is really the goal.
Is there a web page or a site that you would recommend if people could find out more about your organization?
Yes, though right now it's all centered around trying to get us. We actually were deeply impacted. Our center was destroyed during the storms. So we've had flooding, we had trees come down. We have 8 different spots that we're dealing with mold remediation. So we've actually had to technically close our doors, and we're trying to fundraise just to get. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of repairs for our center. So, but you can go to koongie.org. That's COONGIE.org. And right now the website's really focused around our kind of critical needs. Right now we're building a home for a fire survivor that lost everything. He's 76 and going through chemotherapy. And so we kind of have that front and center, and then us really trying to get our basic needs kind of met and repairs. And Allison, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, could you spell that again for the?
Yeah. Yes, it's C like cat, OON like Nancy, GIE like elephant.org.
E.org. Got it.
Kind of a funny name, Kungi. It was actually named by a bunch of children that came together and came up with the acronym of what it is that we do. So it's sort of a sweet thing, but yeah.
Liz, did you have a question?
Yes, I was curious as to whether, because many of the the items that you mentioned that were services that you were providing, I was wondering if you are hooked into the larger relief system that the network that exists throughout the valley of both NGOs and governmental agencies as well as your own.
That must be the long-term recovery group. Is that what you're referring to, Liz?
Well, that's kind of it, yeah. I'm just aware that there may be agencies that can provide support of various kinds, even just knowing about your agency or your organization, to have you on the map of players during times of stress like this.
Yeah, I'd say I'm very curious to learn more of what some of those groups are. I am tied in the long-term recovery group and have worked very closely with Mountain Community Resources, Community Foundation, some of Community Bridges, and yeah, but you know, there's always more, and I'd love to see. I'm really interested in kind of that network and how it's all built. And I think some of the biggest things that I hear from people in disasters, they don't really know who to turn to and who supplies what, you know, and so just being able to really have that clearly mapped out. I'm a really big fan of resource mapping and having it visual and letting people know exactly where to go for exactly what need, and to make it really clear so they don't have to learn, you know, 3 months in. We learned, you know, after 2.5 months that the county and state couldn't help us with our road that had been destroyed. And thank you, Dave Reid, who's here. He helped us a lot and came out to our road and really tried to see ways through that. And it was during all of that that we understood there's 12,884 private roads in our county, and understanding they're on their own. And so what can we set in place so they know what to do if they have a road that goes out, you know, and not having to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, it's I'm very interested to hear about more organizations or, you know, groups that are like that in our area.
You hit several of the ones that I would want you to be in contact with. I too work with Mountain Community Resources as a volunteer. So welcome to the map of what we do to keep the valley going. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, quite topically, I'd love to try to pick up. Let's see, Angie, I see that you're here, and oh, and there's Cameron from the Resource Conservation District. Would you like to talk a little bit about what your role is with RCD?
Definitely. Thanks for having me, everyone. Sorry I didn't chime in during the introduction. I was still driving, so couldn't figure out the unmute button. But yeah, I'm happy to speak with you here today. I work for the Resource Conservation District of Santa Cruz County. We're a special district. We're not the county. We're loosely affiliated with them. We get a small amount of funding to keep us running, but we kind of run mainly off grant funding. And we're a local special district here to help you guys out with any resource concerns. A little bit about me. I actually was great hearing from you, Rebecca. I studied disasters as well in college 10 years ago up at Western Washington University. And I'm very into agroecology as well. So I work as a program assistant on the agriculture team with the RCD. But the last 3 months, because of the crazy storms we've had a site visit service, and I've been helping conduct those site visits. So we started that after the New Year's storm, and we've completed about 160 site visits with a certified erosion and settlement control specialist who's on our staff. And it's a unique service. It's a non-regulatory service and it's free. It's basically the point of the visits are to armor and empower you with information to deal with storms, because lots of people don't know what to do or, you know, where to go next once they receive damage. So we want to be there to help and show what resources you have on different levels. And the site visits, we provide a summary of the recommendations we make. It's not really a report, it's more of a summary of recommendations. And you don't have to do them. We don't like follow up and go, oh, you have to do our recommendations. It's kind of information that you can take going forward with your decision-making process, dealing with damage. So yeah, it's been very educational. Every site visit's been different. Yeah, it's been very interesting. One of the main things we're seeing is a lot of damage from water, you know, it's such a huge amount, and impervious surfaces. So just kind of raising community education to how much water can run off an impervious surface. Yeah, so I don't know, I'm happy to expand on it. There's different ways, things I could talk about, but if anyone's interested in a site visit, I can provide you the link. Like I said, it's free, non-regulatory, and it's all to just help you out. So yeah.
It looks like your organization's website URL is rcdsantacruz.org is what it looks like.
Yeah, I'll actually, in the chat, I'll paste our natural disaster resources page. It's an excellent page. Angie actually put it together. And it has, you can request a site visit there. There's a link for requesting that. And then there's also links to our publications about erosion prevention or hazard trees, and links to FEMA and county public works as well, or the Santa Cruz response. So it's a really good page with consolidated resources for you.
Great. Anyone have any quick questions for Cameron? I noticed that, Gwen, you were asking, I think, about the chipping program. And so it is also RCD that runs a chipping program in the county. And my understanding is there's a spring program, and then there's maybe it's a fall program. So the spring is a no-cost chipping program, and it requires some signups. Actually, RCD just had, I think you guys just had a webinar about this. Maybe it was last week. And the chipping program is already open. There's a certain number of slots that the public can apply for. You have to determine that you're within the bounds of the service area. Oh, Angie, you're here. Would you like to speak to that briefly?
Sure. Yeah. My cat is meowing. I don't know why my video is not working, so I apologize for that. So thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us. So the chipping program, we've had it for a long time, and it's something that we request funding through various agencies, CAL FIRE, the California Association of or California Fire Safe Council. And so we had some funding, luckily already kind of lined up when this hit, and we opened in spring. We normally get maybe 250 people to sign up, and due to the storms, we actually also increased the number of piles. The premise of the chipping program, just to step back, isn't traditionally storm cleanup. It is defensible space around homes, and somebody had mentioned that 100-foot area. So the funding that we receive is really about wildfire preparedness and creating defensible space around your home and or your private road. So due to the storms, we were actually able to increase the number of piles that folks had, and then we really pushed the idea of folks being able to also clear along their private roads a lot of the downed tree debris from the storms. We actually reached our capacity already and have requested some additional funds that look like they're coming through from some various folks, the Community Foundation, from the county, etc. So we hope to open it up for people on the waiting list. We hit 550 people and there's about 50 people on the waiting list currently. So I encourage folks, when you get, when we let folks off the waiting list, it will be on a first come first served basis. And then for the fall program, we are hoping to preserve some of our money for the fall, but we really want to serve everyone in the spring. That program is a little, so the spring program is a 2-step process, and you essentially sign up and reserve a spot, and then you have to go ahead and then prepare your piles. There's a how-to little slideshow. There's also the webinar was recorded if you prefer to watch that. And then you come back for step 2 once your piles are prepared, and you let us know how many piles you did, any specific information we might need to find them. And then we actually have chipping companies that we hire, and they come out to your house and do the chipping, and they leave the chips on site. For the fall program, you need to get 8 neighbors or more together, and then you hire a licensed contractor and you get reimbursed a specific amount per household that participates. And all that information is on our website at rcdsantacruz.org/chipping for both of the programs. And that usually has a cap too. There, it's all grant funded, like I said. So we kind of estimate what the average cost from historically working with folks is going to be, and then we set the cap at that. And then I was gonna, if anybody has questions about that, I'm happy. I was just gonna follow up a little bit of what Cameron said. So the RCDs does offer site assessments year round for people on various things, natural resource related, erosion, drainage, stream side living, water conservation, a lot of work in agriculture. And so we have those year round. When we have a natural disaster such as the CZU Fires or a storm like this, where we get a huge number of calls where so many people all at once really need assistance, we were able to, like Cameron mentioned, partner. We have a local partnership with an arm of the USDA called the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And they offer free services to us in times of disaster. So they hire professional consultants to come out. We also received some funds from the Community Foundation to make sure we could meet the demand. And then we get additional consultants to come out and do the site visits with us as well as our staff.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, I'll just chime in as well. Thank you, Angie. That was very well put. And yeah, the disasters, it's really hard times, but one of the good things that we have seen in these visits is neighbors getting to know each other for the first time. In one visit, we were on a local creek and there were 7 houses on it. They're all impacted. And we had 1 visit scheduled and we were out there doing the visits, and 6 other households came out and they all met each other for the first time. And it was great because then they could start dealing with the issue together, and, you know, they find out their kids go to the same school. So yeah, I'm not glorifying disaster times at all, but if there is one silver lining, I think it is community resilience and getting to know your neighbors and seeing this group. It's awesome what you guys have going here. This is a great thing. So just wanted to give you guys all a shout out for that. And feel free to reach out. We're here year round, like Angie said, and any questions or concerns. Lots of times it's just a small issue that can grow into something big, such as like a drain pipe from your gutter going to a steepened hillside. And like I mentioned with the impervious surfaces, 100 square foot roof with 1 inch of water is 60 gallons. So if you do that with 1,000, it's 600. So it goes up. It's the area you have times 0.62 time with the 1 inch of water. So if you think about that downspout from that just 10 by 10 woodshed going onto a hillside, we could mitigate that by extending that downspout to the bottom of the slope, directing it to a redwood fairy ring. That's just one example, but there's so many things that we've seen that could have helped mitigate some of the damage. And you know, it's pennies on the dollar compared to doing it after the fact. So one of the RCD publications is called Slow It, Spread It, Sink It. I'll link to that as well, but the information in that publication from what I've seen the last 3 months, it's worth its weight in gold. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's a great publication. Share it with your neighbors. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it. Any questions? Happy to chime in.
And Tammy, I wanted to mention one other thing. We get a lot of calls, or we see a lot of damage for folks on private roads. And so one thing that folks had been asking or trying to get together, and there's been some attempt on Facebook and different things, is to have a place where private road owners could talk amongst each other and post questions and share information. So I helped set up a group. It's not something that we're actively participating because it's really a community-based group for private road associations, and it's a group IO. So it's essentially a sharing thing, and you can go on and search by topic, and folks can even, send something out and say, oh, contact me privately. So it's groups.io, and if you just search Santa Cruz Private Roads, there's also a link on the RCV's webpage under our resources. We have a private roads maintenance guide and a whole bunch of other things, and there's a link to that group. And so I encourage folks. I think there's about 50 people. I don't know if it's super active, but I was going to request that maybe one of the active members does a little Zoom call for maybe 15-20 minutes and shows everyone how to use it, and kind of get folks a little bit more actively engaged. But you can ask questions about, you could probably ask who's a contractor that you use. You could ask about road agreements and what works and what doesn't work. And there's just so many things. And during a disaster like this, we posted some information about FEMA for private roads, which especially in the beginning was super complicated. And Rebecca had a lot of experience with that, of getting denied and coming back and getting denied. And I think if you don't know that, you're going to get discouraged and stop. And so I think it's a really great place for that type of information too.
Yeah, that's really amazing. We'll follow up on that. I don't know, Rebecca, I don't know if you want to, I know you've written into the chat, but if you wanted to speak out loud a little bit about the SLV Private Roads group and page and what you did there, if you have a minute.
Yeah, I mean, really just inspired by Angie, honestly, as she kind of held our hand a lot of the way, trying to demystify the processes we have to go through. And yeah, appreciated kind of getting to work more closely with the OR3 team and Cal OES, and kind of really figuring out what we need to do and what our next steps are and how we get through permitting. And so for those who aren't on Facebook, especially, the groups.io is really helpful because not everyone's on social media. And then I've just been trying to kind of cross post the links and information that goes into the groups.io page and the Facebook group as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gwen, I see your hand. Do you have a quick question?
I do. So I did some volunteering at the disaster assistance centers that were set up, the one in Santa Cruz and one in Felton. And the majority of people that came to Felton, that's what they were looking for help on, is private road stuff. And basically they didn't get any help. So do you guys have documentation, or do you participate in those disaster assistance centers that they set up? Or
are you asking, Gwen, are you asking the conservation district, Angie at the conservation district?
Yeah, the RCD.
Yeah, RCD. So we did not have a table there this time. And one thing to clarify is we don't necessarily know the process either, but we try to attend probably the same as Dave from the county. You just try to learn as much as you can. And I really tried to help consolidate stuff for folks. So in that roads group was one place that we posted things. So I listened, I pulled information, I asked FEMA questions, and I tried to kind of consolidate stuff in one place. Certainly next time we might have a table there, and I'm hoping
even just documentation with links to the things would have, I mean, people were in tears. They were just, absolutely, I don't know what to do.
And we did put
And-
those links in the group IO with links to different things and some on our website as well. But if people don't know where that is, that does make it harder. And I'm hoping that for,
Exactly,
yeah.
I mean, people walk up and they've got the clothes on their back and they're
Yeah.
desperate, and you know, it's like, what do you need help with? Our road. We have
Right.
a private road. And it was over and over and over again that that's what people were asking about.
Yeah, and a lot of
And,
people didn't
you
even
know,
have internet access. So it was hard for them to even get on a computer, and they didn't have access to that. I'm hoping that all of us, you know, after there's some time to take a breath, can sit down, we can work with OR3 and other folks and kind of have a more comprehensive. The county did put together for folks like Rebecca that potentially needed permits because of the type of road work they were doing. They did put together a guide of all the different agencies and how to go through. And so I've been helping Rebecca put together some of those permits to the best of my ability and walking through that process. So that information was also super helpful, and they rallied to get that done. That was not something that existed before, and found some samples from another county. So I think there's lots after this that hopefully moving forward, we can have a more comprehensive kind of step by step. I don't think the process changes. And for FEMA, this happens all over the country. So, and there seemed to be some willing FEMA employees that wanted to make the process better too for future disasters.
People were trying to be helpful, but they do, you know, it's like, well, you need to get everybody on your road to come down here and fill out paperwork. And, you know, it was hard, really hard for that group of people.
Yeah, I'll just add in that I go to the DRC twice a week and help people with private roads specifically. So I'm there usually between 2 and 4 p.m. So if people need help, I was there today and stayed a bit late. But yeah, we helped like 7 more people through it today. And it's a newer process for FEMA, it seems too. So they're kind of learning the ropes. And if you do go to the DRC and you can ask for Robin or Daryl, they're really familiar with that process now. So that's kind of a tip for everyone.
Fabulous. Okay, let's pivot, and I'm gonna come back to, I'd like to have Stacy share with us if you're ready.
Okay, I'm here.
So tell us a little bit about what you did through all these storms that had an impact.
So I took my background, which is I started in SAR, search and rescue 30 years ago, moved into emergency management on all different facets, including large volunteer pop-ups for searches, community searches for missing children, and kind of shifted that to what I saw as a need in our disasters here, starting with the CZU fire that, you know, we all lived and breathed for a very extended period of time. And then most recently during these floods, a couple of things really came up. And when the January storms started, there was 3 of us that were trying to find information for the valley. You know, I have the distinct positive of I no longer live in the valley, so I'm able to support everybody in there much better because my power wasn't going out. I wasn't flooding. So kind of everybody started calling me and texting me because they were having all those issues, and I was sitting, you know, pretty in Scotts Valley in reality. But that allowed me to have the time. And one of the things we really noticed was trying to find that information quickly and accurately and in real time. So with the Facebook group, you know, it's a great source of crowdsourcing information, which becomes really key during these events. But a lot of the groups out there that we had been a part of, they get very snippy. The information can get sideways to all kinds of things that are on scanners and, you know, which all can be great information, but not what you need when you're trying to figure out if you can get down the road safely. And so we created SLV Roads in early January with the intent that it was only road information, nothing else, only for the Valley, including San Jose, because that's such an important, commute for everybody. And we don't have that many rules other than you don't get to be snippy and rude. And absolutely, we will delete immediately, and as soon as we see it, anything that is posted about illegal traversing. So don't go on and tell me that you went over live power lines, that you went around a road closure. If you want to go risk killing yourself, fine, but do not post it on our page, because I do not want to be responsible for somebody getting hurt and ending up down a cliff. And then the other big thing that we do is we delete old posts, and we say it like every week as new members came in. I mean, we started in January. We have over 5,000 members already. It absolutely shot up, but our big thing was if the information is outdated, it's deleted off the page. So it's a really quick access point, and Facebook is notorious now with their algorithms for showing you things that happened 3 days ago or a post that was made 3 days ago. And when you're quickly looking, you're not always looking at that date and you're like, oh crap, Highway 9 at Redwood is closed. Well, that was actually from last Friday. But if you're not looking at that little tiny date, you think it's current. So we just kind of circumvent their algorithms and just delete those posts altogether. So it's really been overall a great group. People give really great information and updates. We expanded during the January floods. I created a crowdsource map that is kind of, it's been used, crowdsource mapping has been used for a very long time in hurricane areas and tornado areas. They're not using it a lot yet on the West Coast. So I brought it. Fortunately, Roxy, who is on here, who is a saint, was working the Bonny Doon one. So we were able to merge our maps to kind of give a bigger view. And when, I'm sure you guys all noticed, when things went crazy and it was so overwhelming and we had so many roads closing, the county can't keep up. CHP cannot keep up. You'll notice Caltrans, CHP, all of their pages cannot actually keep up with the information. CHP cannot clear their logs. So you'll find even information, especially during the January more than the March, where their logs were still showing things that were no longer impacted 2 days later. So crowdsourcing is great with the caveat of it's only as good as your crowds. And so the big problem that I started to have with it, and part of why I didn't do it in March, was that, and here I can actually share my screen, maybe, just so for you guys may not be familiar with it. But part of the problem was when things started to clear up, I wasn't getting the information that areas were now clear, and then your map is no longer viable. So here is what the SLV Roads page looks like if you're looking for it on Facebook. And as long as you're a human, we will let you in. It's pretty much that simple. But you can kind of see, we try to, when things are down, give helpful tips. We keep the reporting stuff all on here. But there's really not much on here. If I go down past like 1 day ago, then the rest is just informational stuff. I'll zoom, about sandbags and that kind of thing, because everything else has been cleared out. It's no longer relevant, it's gone. So I think it's worked really well for people to just have a really quick access point of up-to-date information. If people have been really good in the Valley about letting us know when things change as well. This was the crowdsource map that I did for January. And I left some of the stuff on just so you kind of see, and it was doing the whole county. And I was dropping everything. I was using Caltrans, I was using CHP's page, I was using people reporting into me, and I was using about 7 different Facebook groups to populate this map. getting it populated real time in terms of things happening is very easy for me. It works great. The problem was getting people to report when things had cleared out and were no longer impacted, when I could take it off the map or gray it out. And I hate having a map that has inaccurate, outdated information. So, you know, I know that Roxy was having great success up there with keeping that information. So Bonny Doon was golden. You knew exactly what was going on. Parts of the valley, pretty good. If it works really well, if you can have people feeding you the information. And, you know, yes, there are other groups, or there's official sources, right? There's a county map, which is wonderful as long as they're getting the information in quickly. And then they are also limited by the hours that they work. So sometimes there's a delay. And then again, you've got the CHP issues and the Caltrans issues. And I'm sure some of you saw things on 17 being reported that literally 17 was still closed by Bear Creek. It had been open for 2 days and their map still showed it was closed. I now have an contact point for that. You know, if in the wonderful, perfect world, if we could get the valley divvied up by people to then just report back in those information, even to a Facebook group or, you know, all different sorts of methods, I would be happy to keep this back up again. I've done it for Florida. I've done it for Mississippi, for Texas. I have people that will help me on the East Coast so that when I can sleep, they can help. I think I could probably convince Roxy to help me again, maybe. But so, you know, it works really well and you get that crowdsourcing. There's just going back to those homegrown roots is what is going to keep us all surviving during disasters. And I think it's been said multiple times here, relying on your neighbors and your community is where it's all going to start during those initial hours, because the city, the county, the state, the feds cannot keep up, as we saw, to no fault of their own. It's just impossible. So you have to come together as a community and then survive through that state, and then they can come in and start helping and, you know, catch up. But I think the Valley has long been doing it. There's a lot of people that have come in and they're a little bit new. So they got a real taste of welcome to mountain living here in the last couple of years. And it's a bit of a shock for some, but there's so many that are great in this organ group that's here that is doing exactly that. So, you know, I just want to help you guys and the community out there because it's still my home. It's where I was born. It's where I was raised. I graduated from SLV High. So, you know, it's important to me and I have skills that I can use to help. So anything that I can do to help you guys make it easier, if you have ideas to make the groups better, if you want other things, say the words. You will not hurt my feelings, because I want to make it work for you guys to benefit you.
Wow, well, such big kudos to you for all your work. I saw that happening. I saw people really making use of that as a major resource. I myself made use of it even just last weekend. And so fantastic. I wanted to do one thing, which was I noticed the cover page that you have for your site is a map called the SLV Cheat Map by Robert. I don't know if it's Staten or Staten. Do you know?
Stanton, I believe, but yeah.
Stanton. Okay. So, and I wasn't able to get him here on this call tonight, but I'm going to do a quick share because I found his page where his map can be downloaded. So Robert made this map, and what he said about it on his post. Oh gosh, what did I do with that information? Here it was. So quoting him, the concept came from a documentary I saw about the invention of modern subway maps. Long story short, I decided that all the twisty bends are irrelevant. All we care about is what the next significant road is. And, you know, what I saw happen was someone had posted out about, gee, you know, wasn't there an evacuation map, or shouldn't there be an evacuation map for the valley? And the next thing we know, Robert shows up with this, and it's beautiful and brilliant. And I'm hoping to get in touch with him again. And I think this is one of the hidden gems of all of the storms, is this amazing map.
Yeah.
Can anybody give me a name for this sort of map?
Well, he's called it the SLV Cheat Map, but in his quote there, he was referring to like modern subway maps, or like where you don't actually have to see the literal road, the road path. You just need to know the connections.
And that's what intrigues me. I'm wanting to follow up on this, but I don't even know what to ask the search engines for. So if anybody has any suggestions, please chat, text, email, etc. I'll jump out of the meeting.
Are you looking for that specific map?
Or just the concept behind
Or
it?
just the concept?
Yes.
That's a good question. And I will have to think about that. All right, while we're doing that, while we're thinking about that, I'd love to jump to Roxy. Tell us about, sounds like you guys are partners in crime when it comes to maps. Love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm really stoked to meet Stacy, and I just want to thank everyone here that they just did so much for the community. But meeting Stacy was like a godsend during the time, because I felt like I was alone, and and then I was introduced to the SLV Roads. I was like, oh, they got it. I'm just small potatoes over here in Bonny Doon. Let me just share a screen real fast, because it's going to be a lot easier. Let's see. And I actually did a presentation on Friday for the SLV group, ham group, and I presented my work on the mapping and emergency communications. So I wanted to thank Don Mackey for creating essentially the local Bonny Doon MURS radio map and community communications between all of Bonny Doon. So Bonny Doon, is it Bonny Doon Community Communications? Sorry, Don, I'm gonna just slaughter the whole concept. This is the map where all of the neighborhoods have sectioned themselves off and use either FRS or MURS radios. FRS and MURS radios do not require a license. They're very low entry barrier to entry because they're inexpensive. And most of these locations have a dedicated ham. So there's a radio operator, and sometimes there's CERT and or ARES, or one or the other. And sometimes there's a backup. We have a very kind of complex terrain of topography. So these MURS channels are presets with different tones, so that you could actually reuse like 5 channels, but like spread them out across the entirety of Bonny Doon. Dawn has set this up for, I want to say like 2.5 or almost 3 years now. And it's grown to like over 200 users after the CZU aftermath. Everyone really bound together and decided, you know, we really need to do things ourselves. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to help our community and our immediate neighbors. So the one section that is really kind of far off, that is sort of their own group in this though, is the Smith Grade area. And I've recently become a part of their like kind of mass email chain, because they're so far away from everyone. They have like a bowl, so it's very hard for them to actually hit any ham repeaters, and it's also very hard for them to use any of their local MURS or FRS radios to reach people. During the first storm, I actually have a volunteer fire personnel in my neighborhood, and he was like, I want to hear the ham radio stations, come here and help program the radio so we could listen. And so when I was there and helping coordinate some program radio so they could listen to FRS, MURS, as well as ham bands, he suggested to me, like, how can we utilize the Bonny Doon Facebook group and let people know, like, current information, and current information being mostly what roads are open, if there's an emergency happening. And so this was something that I witnessed him making, like a Google map. And unfortunately, he couldn't keep it up because I think he got reprimanded for doing it. Don't want to be liable for anything and have like incorrect information. So what I ended up doing was making a local map just to Bonny Doon. I'm a very visual person, so when I need to go to work, I want to know exactly which way to get off the mountain. There's only 5 roads that get you to Felton, Boulder Creek, SLV, Santa Cruz, or Highway 1. And almost always all of them are closed except for one, and maybe half. And that's always like a one slide road, and it's super sketchy and horrible. And so my goal was to do green, yellow, and red for dangers, and making sure people could get to whatever place. A lot of these parts of the map were cut or bisected by fallen trees or some power lines down. So I actually went in and hand drew little directions, and sometimes I would have to cut them in half if there was some kind of closure. Luckily, one day I had help from Lisa Shallop, who's on here, as well as Alex Hayes, who are also my Aries friends. And so I knew that they could help me and be focused on helping me create and listen to the Bonny Doon group for map information. I did the same thing with crowdsourcing information. A lot of people, like, luckily I'm the admin for, or moderator for the group and the Facebook group. So I could see and kind of post things that were relevant. What was cool is that after a while, I could notice 1 or 2 people from specific areas coming or going to work or commuting or trying to get their kid from school. And so I would ping those people and be like, hey, did you happen to get home? And how did you get home? And so a lot of that was really crowdsourced by texting people. I had a complete power outage, but I have a little battery pack that powers my my cell signal booster and my computer. And with just the 2 items, I could work the entire system. My ham radio was set to CAL FIRE, and another radio was set to SLV Roads. So when SLV Roads, I love SLV Roads so much that I'm calling it was actually Roads, which is the local Department of Public Works. And so I could listen to them when they were fixing the roads as they were finishing. So they would call in to their dispatch and say, oh, we're at like Martin Grade right now, and oh no, we can't touch this one because PG&E has to deal with it. And so they would move on to the next one, and I would just literally click open, open, open to all of these things, or keep them closed and keep people aware of things. So I was using the ham frequencies to post onto like really relevant information that was critical to people's success getting home or not. And then I was able to listen to the road closures being open as they were being open. But more importantly too, because of that previous map, I was taking care of my neighborhoods because they were literally without power. I have 2 neighborhoods. I have one on Empire and another one on Sunlit. Sunlit is like a 1-lane road in and out, and they had so many trees down and so many power lines down, and they were like the expert radio users. When the power went off, I could hear so much chatter. It was like everyone was talking to everyone. There were people cleaning culverts. There were people getting chainsaws out and cutting trees and clearing up roads. But there were times when you know, it was a little quiet and someone would be like, is there anyone there? My generator just turned off. I need help, you know, and like some people got their power back on, but I would monitor the whole time just because I knew that there was always, like, we were running out of propane. It was like such a long power outage that people were just, you know, really having a hard time kind of just surviving all of it. So let me see if I can, oops. Oh, okay. So just to jump ahead, I didn't do any of the mapping similar to Stacy because all of the mapping got to a point where I believe if you help someone not feel inconvenience, they love you for it. But when you start being the inconvenience or not letting them back on a road that they see and they're like, we watched someone go around it, then it becomes this weird tenuous situation where you're like, I'm happy you got to where you're going, but please don't post it. Please don't share. And it was really hard to validate some of the openings because they were from different locations and jurisdictions. So Bonny Doon Road would be open and usually there's fallen trees or whatever. But at the very, very bottom, there was like power lines that had been pulled down and they were super precarious. And if they pulled more, you know, they would have like hit people's homes. And so I actually was introduced to the person that was kind of like in that neighborhood. And they were like, we are watching them fix the roads. Like, if anything, at least tell them to stop speeding from the top of Bonny Doon. So it was a little bit frustrating and similar to what Stacy had on the site of SLV Roads, like all the links to how to share that there's a power outage or a road down or, you know, something blocking something. I just decided hands off, just put the information down for people to find the information and do it themselves. So, and it was like whack-a-mole with openings and closures. I didn't want to like put myself through that again, and I had to go to work. So this is me outside my front door because I was watching people slide backwards in their cars trying to get up Empire Grade to the Triangle, which is Pine Flat. Everyone wanted to see how snowy it was, and we live in a place where we don't get snow plows. The roads are crowned, so everything falls off the sides, including all-wheel vehicle cars and four-wheel drives. And so all of the neighbors were like sitting outside with like hot coffee and watching as people would slide down. And I'm like, okay, it's all fun and good, but I want to help these people not do that. It's so stressful. So I got on the ham radio and I was actually trying to, I did an emergency break where I was asking for help for someone to call CHP to close the road. It was getting really bad. And even PG&E trucks were trying to get by. And this is just someone with brakes and they're just like sliding backwards. And it was just a horrible driveway in front of our home. And so I was really concerned. And it was funny because I was still on the radio listening and I overheard the ham person that responded to me say, why didn't she use her cell phone? Like, it's so weird. She could have just called 911. And I was like, I can't call anyone. I don't have cell reception right here. Oops, sorry. It's a very fast video. So lessons I learned, long outages just meant more redundancies helped. So if you didn't have cell service or if you didn't have a cell battery charger that PG&E or Comcast set up on a tower, a lot of people had to resort to driving to the local fire station to use their cell phones and check information. Some people's landlines went down. Some people did have cell reception. So as many forms of communication were really helpful. I found that it was very challenging, even though I was a moderator, to have authority. I think it was really challenging to have people, you know, kind of go, well, I've seen the barricades and they're up, but I've seen them when they're still up, and I know that the road's open, so I don't trust barricades anymore. And it was very black or white, and like without having authority, like a figure of some kind of like DPW says the roads are open, but they couldn't keep up with everything, right? And so this is when I felt like I found my core like friends and people that I met, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're like someone I could trust, and I could just trust without worrying. And so like Stacy was one of those people, and I was like, oh great, we can share information, and it's accurate, and it's not like feeding information that's false. And so that was very reassuring, and I was actually really inspired to keep doing it, because I was kind of getting tired. And then with the fatigue of mapping, like I reached out to so many people just to say like, hey, can you please help with the map? And I just would not get any help. And it's hard, because you really have to kind of sacrifice your own time. And so that was something that I found that Aries prepared me for. But other than that, I really was super thankful that Dawn had set up everything, and we had practices for our own groups, and we had group countywide practices as well as Bonny Doon specific practices, where we practiced on the radio so much that all of my groups were just regular, like, oh yeah, get on the radio, no problem. So that was very exciting.
Thank you so much, Roxy. Wow, what a great success, particularly to hear about how well the radios are working and are taken into the community. Dawn, did you have any comments about the radios that you'd like to add?
Oh, just real quick. The whole thing happened after CZU because we had no communication. And during the storms, I couldn't look at a Facebook page. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have power. Been here 50 years, and we had longer power outages and more of them in the last month than any time in that 50 years. So after CZU, everybody decided they were all going to use radios, but they didn't know which radios to use. And luckily, CERT had already decided on MURS and MURS programming and allowed us to piggyback on their radio programming. So all the neighborhoods up here can also communicate with CERT on the same channels and use the same radios, which are very simple. Roxy said there were a lot of people helping people. It's really the first line, and everyone else here has said it's the community, it's your neighbors. Those are the people that are going to come through for you, and they're going to be there for you. And your neighbors will come out and cut down that tree a whole lot faster than anybody else is going to get there for you. So I'm really pushing organization of neighborhood radio groups. It only takes a person to decide to talk to their neighbors to organize it. And I can almost guarantee there'll be a ham radio operator in your neighborhood, because there's a lot of them out here. And also, I think that Lisa probably has a lot to say about it, because she's also very active. So beyond the mapping, I think the radio is a way to communicate. And Dave, we're having an exercise April 29th. We're doing a countywide MURS exercise with Aries and CERT and neighborhoods. And CERT would like to be activated. I think Mary Edmond has contacted you about that. We haven't quite heard officially yet. So just a plug for getting an official activation for that exercise on the 29th. Thank you.
Liz, did you have a question or comment?
Yes. I just wanted to say that to come in back on what Dawn was saying about this starting out as a plan for CERT, even though we continue to work on it, the Bonny Doon area has certainly provided the best example of local area participation and responsiveness. And we look to that as a plan or as a template for what could be done throughout the rest of the county. Unfortunately, the people in the lower, anyway, nothing like a good disaster to motivate people. And so I think we'll probably have more cooperation in the valley than in not necessarily in other areas of the county, but at least we have our golden example up in Bonny Doon, and I really want to thank the people that put energy into that. So thank you.
Thanks. And I'd love to pass the microphone now to Dave Reid. Dave, a couple things. Obviously, there's a lot that's been said this evening that you might want to respond to, but honestly, if I could ask you also, from your perspective at OR3, what happened at OR3? Maybe it's behind the scenes and we didn't necessarily see it, but what was your experience of these storms? What worked? Did you think worked? What were some things that were good that you saw at your level?
Well, thanks, Tammy, and thanks everybody for sharing your lived experiences and the tools and the resources that you've created. It's always helpful to hear all the efforts that are going on. There's a lot that we've learned, a lot that we're trying to improve upon, and lots of additional room for improvement and learning through these series of federally declared disasters. As I said in another context in a community meeting the other night with the senator's office, we're now in week 14 of 2023, and we've had a federally declared disaster for 10 of those weeks. We're still in a federally declared disaster. They have not ended the second federally declared disaster. So I want to just acknowledge the trauma that everybody has experienced, the loss that many folks have experienced or witnessed, the onages, as they've been called, versus the outages, because there's been more outages than onages with PG&E this winter, as Roxy and others articulated. I mean, I think there's themes out of this conversation that we've learned, right? Communication is a big one. And for those who aren't tracking, and I think I shared this at the community meeting the other night, but for those who don't track board meetings as closely as I have to, our board of supervisors gave direction to my office in the end of January to improve our communication tools. So as an operational area, which is the term we use to describe our county, including the cities, historically, the Office of Emergency Services, or OR3 at the county, has not been able to independently send out alert and warning information. We have relied upon NetCom to do that. That is going to change in the next I would say 6 to 8 weeks. We are building the capacity in OR3 to be able to do that. We will be developing and rolling out a new tool to replace Code Red. So we will be gathering the subscriptions and all the folks that have signed up for Code Red and porting them into a new software system. And NetCom will still do what NetCom does, but the county will be able to send out alert and warning communication information independent of NetCom, as they need, as we learned in these disasters, as they need to focus on dispatching, first responders, fire, law, ambulance services. It gets hard for them to send out an evacuation notice or other notices. So some of you who have registered for Code Red may have seen some of the messages that we send out around, bad weather coming, before the bomb cyclone dropped in early March, about, ironically, within minutes or within an hour before it really hit and went crazy, we sent out a message via Code Red from my office through Netcom to say, hey, the weather's going to be really bad for the next 2 or 3 hours. Stay off the road. It's not safe. We sent out the recovery survey or the damage survey that over almost 2,000 residents filled out, which helped us to get our federal disaster declaration with individual assistance. So we just want to do more of that stuff and be in partnership with the many different communication channels that are out there, because we recognize, as Roxy said and others lived and Dawn, that when there are power outages or disasters and traditional communication tools go down, we have to have these other systems in place. You know, I've been advertising the NOAA weather radio as one tool, but ultimately ARES in a disaster will be in our Emergency Operations Center, our EOC. And if communities have connection to ARES through MURS and licensed ARES members, then they can communicate into our EOC and communicate actionable intelligence. If there's a medical emergency or some issue. So the communication patterns that people have made are great, and I think we need to continue to build those redundant systems. We need to build capacity to do that. The other theme that I think is interesting that Stacy talked about and Roxy is the information collection in these fast changing and ever evolving disasters. And I do want to explore ways to improve the collection of that information and centralize it, so that, as Roxy said, she may get fatigued from collecting that information. But if we create with some trusted voices in community, Stacy, clearly you're a trusted voice and a trusted source. And Roxy, if we create trusted resources where we can give you a GIS tool that ports into a GIS map instance that we can see, the county can see, then you're giving that information to a broader audience, and it may be more quickly actionable for us as intelligence. In the emergency management parlance, as folks know, there's information and there's intelligence. And information can just be, transient or inaccurate, and intelligence is something that's actionable. And as Stacy and Roxy articulated, you guys both got a little bit of both, and it's always hard in your roles and in your support role to know which is which. So you're just trying to put it all up on a map, throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks. And so I think it's interesting to think about those things. Couple other quick things, because I don't want to take up all the airtime and I know it's late. I think that something that bears longer conversation are some of the things that Rebecca talked about, and Angie and Cameron from the RCD around recovery from disaster. I want to remind folks and communicate out through your channels, right? We are in this next round of federally declared disaster. So any damages that folks sustained between February 21st and today, or continuing on, you have to register for FEMA if you want to take advantage of those resources. I know that a lot of folks, one of the hard parts that community members in the Valley have expressed is a deep fear of asking their insurance companies to address the issue, because they're afraid that's going to trigger a cancellation. And it puts people into a terrible position of, do I use this resource when I need it now? Or do I not use it and suffer and then hope it sticks around? And my recommendation is, you have no guarantee. Your insurance company will not promise you anything, is what I'm finding. They will deny everything. You are all, myself included, I live in the WUI. We are all underinsured based on the cost of construction. That's the reality the CZU survivors have expressed, every day since they've tried to rebuild and started getting quotes and cost of construction and labor and materials. So you might as well use your insurance. And if they're not available to give you the support you need in this disaster or in the January disaster, try and take advantage of the federal government or SBA to make yourself whole, and then build resilience in your home through either defensible space for wildfire stuff or clearing of hazard trees if there are things like that. So I could probably ramble more, but I do want to honor everybody's time, and I'm happy to answer questions or talk about something that's specific that resonated either from the testimonials and conversation or anything that I've said.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone have any questions for Dave or comments generally?
I'd like to just, Dave, I understand that you're on vacation. Is that correct?
That was kind of last week, but it was a truncated.
That was so last week. Okay. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much for being here and spending your valuable time as part of our community to hear what's important to us. That's important to me personally as a resident of the neighborhood of the area. So I just want to say thank you. So many ideas have come up through this that I hope that you will feel free to draw on folks here personally and organizationally as you proceed forward to get stuff done. So
yeah. I mean, that was one other thing I wanted to highlight that, Liz, you said at the very beginning. County CSAs. So you said it in one way, and I'm going to say it another way. County service areas, CSAs, can serve road maintenance. They can also serve wildfire fuel reduction purposes. The benefits of a CSA is that you only need 51% of your neighborhood to agree to do it, and then everybody has to do it, and it's on your tax roll. I understand that for some people that means government intrusion into your private road, but it does provide you with, ironically, I know I just said something about insurance companies, it does provide you with a certain level of insurance, which is that a CSA is eligible for FEMA reimbursement should your road be damaged in a federally declared disaster. Now, God forbid we have another one of these, but we probably will, right? We had it in 2017. We had something in December of 2021, and then we've had 13 atmospheric rivers, 2 bomb cyclones, Fujiwara effect. It's been the weather bingo card this year, so it will happen again. So there are there are warts to CSAs. They are not perfect, but I do think that it warrants a longer or a broader community conversation to educate people, to have somebody like Liz with your lived experience and others like Rebecca with the non-road association, non-CSA lived experience to communicate, hey, this is a tool. It's not perfect for everybody, but I think it's worth educating people of that opportunity to have them consider for themselves as neighborhoods. Because I put in the chat, as Rebecca alluded to, the number of miles, 1,700 miles of private road, driveway, and unnamed access roads in the county of Santa Cruz, second smallest county in the state. And we have 600 miles of county maintained roads. And as all of you know, we can't maintain that 600 miles of road very well. I joke as a bike rider that most dirt roads in our county are equal to or better than many of our paved roads. And that's unfortunate. But it just means, as Rebecca alluded to, that we are not in a financial position to repair private roads, right? We do everything we can to repair our public roads as quickly as we can after a disaster. But CSAs may be one way for people to address that issue. So sorry, I grabbed more airtime.
Dave, can I add one thing to that? Not just in storms, but we saw during the fires, and I suspect even during earthquakes, lots of things can happen to roads. You can have melted culverts that can be super expensive. And then for folks that have retaining structures for their walls, you can all of a sudden have a $500,000 expense that there just isn't funding for, or in, even replacing a culvert in the case of, something that is a stream crossing in the case of Rebecca's Road, it's expensive. And so it's sort of like looking at that reassurance. Sure, most of the stuff is much lower cost, but when you have something like that has to be fixed right away, it can really be completely overwhelming, daunting, and sometimes just not possible for people if they don't have the money, and scary.
Yeah, and there are too many lessons learned of that hardship, right? To not consider all of the options. And I know that, as I said, government is not what some people want on their road, but just as a short example, you can create a CSA. You can choose to levy whatever fee you want annually for yourself. You can do all of the maintenance outside of that CSA. You're not required necessarily to spend those CSA dollars unless you want to. So you can choose the project you want to use CSA levy dollars for, but you can also do side maintenance that is outside of the government contract procurement process. And again, this is getting into the weeds, but there are ways to do a little bit of both of what people want, which is the autonomy and independence to do their own maintenance. And then you have the resource of the county when you need it, potentially, or you have the levying of fees because you've got 4 neighbors who are not willing to participate, but you've got 12 neighbors who are, and that way you compel, basically by putting something on their tax roll, that those 4 outliers have to participate. So anyway.
Dave, can I ask one question? Because I got this question from several people. Are there any resources to help with that initial cost of setting up a CSA? Because it looked like it could be as high as like $5,000, or could that be levied on your taxes?
Oh my God.
You don't need to answer now, but that I saw that it was quite expensive to start it. And I think that really deterred people that were barely, making it.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine spending money to create something when you're in a place of lack of resources and trauma, for sure. That is one of the challenges, right? Because a road association, because it's a county service area, there's a levying of fees. And it has to be based on benefit, right? So if I live at the front of the road, I'm going to pay one set of fees. If Liz lives at the back of the road, she's going to pay a different set of fees. And what you need is an engineering report from an engineer to say these are the reasonable allocation of fees. So it is because of the state and government bureaucracy part of it, and the levying on your property taxes, that it has to be proportional to your zone of benefit. And that report, to Angie, your point, is, can be 5 or 10 grand. Bowman Williams is one that does them locally here. I'm neither endorsing nor recommending, but I know that they do some of it. We don't have any resources right now, but it could be a creative thing that somebody fronts the money and then the CSA pays them back if the community is organized and wants to work in that way. I wish I had money for, as you said, more chipping. I wish I had money, federal money or state money for more of these types of things, and I will look for that because it's a resilience piece, but I don't have anything right now.
Great conversation. Thank you, Angie and Dave. Well, it's been a great and full evening. We are at the top of our hour. So would love to call this meeting to a close, though if anyone would like to stay and have some more casual conversation or more storytelling, we can certainly do that for another 15 or 20 minutes. So thank you everyone for being here and sharing. It's been really a beautiful thing to hear about all the effort that has been gone in, and really appreciate the benefits that we've gained from that. So thank you, everyone.